Hey everybody, it's Jo and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about a question that I've asked myself pretty much every day since I was 13, and that's the question, what should I feel about this? As I've been laid up recovering from ankle surgery, which has been my, I want to say 9th or 10th, I kind of stopped counting at a certain point. I've been thinking about how I have asked myself this question for years now. When I was 13, I had a really bad horseback riding accident. It broke my ankle. It should have been so much worse as far as like I should have broken my neck falling from that horse, but I ended up being in and out of the hospital pretty much my entire teenage life, surgery after surgery, on crutches, most of the time, always recovering from surgery. And I always thought I had done a great job dealing with that. It was something I never really let bother me, if that makes sense, and I thought I had worked through it, right? I didn't think of it as a traumatic experience, but I realized in recent years, every time I was about to have a procedure or a surgery or whatever it was, the night before, I would end up with horrible stomach pains, like end up in the hospital, kind of horrible. And I pretty quickly made the correlation that this only happened the night before ankle procedures. And I talked to my counselor about it, and we kind of came to the realization that I never really, I don't think, worked through that. And it really was a traumatic situation because I could have lost my life because it completely changed the trajectory of my life. And instead of feeling things, I asked myself, what should I feel? I came up with some kind of answer, and I just decided that's what I was gonna do, and I stuffed the rest in a box. I remember in high school when my house burned down for the first time. House has burned down twice. That'll be a different video for another time, but I went over to my boyfriend's house at the time, and I sat down on his couch, and I remember asking, what do people feel when their house burnt down? Like, what am I supposed to feel about this? And whatever his answer was, that's what I was gonna go with. If people were sad, I was gonna try to be sad. If people were totally fine, I was gonna be totally fine. And I've done this with everything. And I've realized it is a really unhealthy thing to do. If we as humans could rationalize our way through emotion, I would be so good at it. I would have all of my emotions down, to a T, and I would never have to go to counseling, and everything would be great. I would just logic my way through everything, but that's not how it works. We have to let ourselves feel things, and that is really hard for me to do. And I have realized lately how often I have asked myself, what should I feel? And then put things in a box and kept them there. So this past year, I became really aware of this and started to try to let myself ride the wave of emotion wherever it took me, which was a really scary thing. And an example of this is when I found out that a good family friend of mine, not even family friend, a really good friend of mine, was actually a sex offender and had been lying to me for years, had become really close to me, heard most of my story, had run support groups that I was in for survivors of sexual assault, was just, it was such a betrayal and was incredibly triggering and heartbreaking to me. And it was a really complicated situation. When things settled down, I remember asking my therapist, what should I feel about this? Like, I just don't know what to do with it. I feel numb. And she told me to feel whatever you feel, like just let yourself be. And so for the first time, I decided to give that a shot. And so I just went back to life. I didn't try to force myself to feel anything. I just continued on the best that I could. And the first thing that came up for me, I was driving in my car, and I suddenly was hit with this overwhelming wave of heartbreak and sadness that this man had chosen to live such a small, pathetic life, that he had the potential to be so much more, and he wasn't. That he had chosen to be a scumbag and to hurt people and to lie to people and to be awful when he could have been something else. And my first reaction, like the first thing I really felt about this whole situation, was heartbreak over what he could have been and wasn't. And then heartbreak over the loss of our friendship. And that was not the first thing I wanted to feel. I wanted to feel rage and anger and just, mentally beat the crap out of him in my head. But that's not what I felt. My first reaction, my honest reaction, was sadness, just pure sadness. And so I let myself cry. I let myself feel that. And it's amazing when you actually let yourself just feel something, and it's so much easier than fighting against it. And so I've tried to put that into practice this year. I'm still working on it. I am not a pro at it just yet. I still ask myself all the time, what should I feel, as a way to try to avoid actually engaging with emotion. But it's getting a lot easier the more I don't answer that question and put that question in a box, and instead just let the emotion come as it comes. The problem is that when we stuff emotions, they don't go away. They're still there, and they end up coming out in one way or another. The same thing happens with trauma. When we don't deal with it, when we put it in a box, when we shove it down, when we try to forget it, it always comes back up. And so to live, I believe, the full human experience and to engage with what's happened to us, whatever that is, we have to let ourselves feel. So if you find yourself asking a similar question whenever something happens, something to the extent of, what should I feel about this? I'd encourage you to join me in, instead of asking that question, putting it aside and letting emotions come as they come, because that's truly the only way that we can feel things and move through them and get to a better place, I believe. I would love to hear your thoughts. Do you do this? Do you ask yourself some other question, or do you actually deal with things in a really healthy way? And if you do, please share your tips and tricks with me, because I would love to hear them. I am Jo Beckwith, and this is Trauma Talk. I really appreciate you tuning into my channel. Make sure that you hit subscribe or like if you're on Facebook. Don't miss any upcoming videos. I release one every other day, and I would love to see you on them. Thank you so much. I look forward to your comments. Take care of yourselves until then.